and we're expecting to see more of that. And in fact, the recent Supreme Court decision around Trump v. US, I think, even heightens the concern about the pardon power, because if Trump is now believing that the court has given him license to use official acts and be insulated from criminal accountability potentially from those acts, he might then also say to his closest associates, don't worry about it, I'll give you a pardon too, and make sure that you're protected from any criminal liability if you carry out the things that I need you to do to effectuate my agenda. So we're concerned. It's a real perversion of the intention of the pardon power, and it's unfortunately one that it seems like this court is implicitly endorsing in some ways.
And please give us a little more detail about how you would, which is a huge, I'm a law school graduate, I never practiced, but I took the bar and passed. But how do you protect the rule of law? It's been so flouted in the last 8 years in this country.
Yeah, I think it involves like a multi-pronged attack, right? We need to do some of the things that we did during the first Trump administration, take him to court, try to uphold the rule of law in cases. And, there's a lot of despair about the federal courts, but federal courts have also, come through in many instances and affirmed that like the law, can't be flagrantly violated. The first Muslim ban was not held up in court. We've litigated on behalf of religious leaders who were unnecessarily like surveilled by the first Trump administration. There are opportunities to uphold the rule of law, and we need to still believe in the system that we have. But we also, per my earlier comment, really need to push Congress to rein in some of the areas where the law is unclear and it feels like the presidents can flout these loopholes, and push them to really clean up the law and recognize that we can't rely on the goodwill or forbearance of people in elected office. Trump has really exposed that it's not just a problem unique to him, but could be exploited by any future person who holds the Oval Office. And unfortunately, in a lot of ways, you see the Overton window shifting on what people think is appropriate based on what Trump has done. And so it really points to the need for these reforms sooner rather than later, before there's further change in public perception about what's really permissible.
How would you protect against using the military for political purposes or as a police force?
This is one of the most concerning promises coming out of the Trump campaign for his use of power in 2025. And we need to remember that this is something that Trump tried and did execute on a little bit during his first term, most notably during the summer of 2020 following the murder of George Floyd, where in Washington, D.C., he not only deployed the D.C. National Guard to put down protests outside of the White House and Lafayette Square, but he actually requisitioned the National Guard of 11 other states, mostly Republican states, to come to D.C. to police these protests. Now, your viewers may know the history around this issue is that there's been a real principle, kind of foundational to this country, that you don't use military force as a domestic
against your own citizens, right?
Exactly. The U.S. military, and particularly the federal armed forces, are trained to carry out missions abroad against people who don't have the same constitutional rights that we do. They're trained for a really different mission. Trump really loves the military, though, and kind of demonstrations of might and power, particularly to quash dissent. He hates it when people are on the streets, protesting his policies. It's really concerning. It's something that, unfortunately, the law provides, because of some of the vagaries of congressional oversight over the years, some real loopholes. And so in particular, there's an 18th century law called the Insurrection Act that Trump wanted to use to deploy the military after the Floyd protests. He's promising that next time, quote unquote, he won't wait. He's gonna just go and declare an Insurrection Act invocation as soon as Inauguration Day. He has promised to put protests. This is something that we should be concerned about. It's something that Congress has a real role in, though. Congress could clean up this really old law that has not been amended since the Civil War era to make really clear that there are only specific contexts under which the president can do this, that it's time limited, that it's subject to judicial review. All these things would really help protect us from this type of abuse of power.